Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar session, bringing DevOps to your ITSM world. My name is Alexander Mazurek with Quint, Wellington, Redwood, and I'll be your host during today's session. Now, just a few facts about our organization, Quint, Wellington, Redwood. We are a global consulting firm dedicated to the improvement of IT's value to the business. We've been in business now for almost 25 years. We'll be celebrating that milestone next year. But we started off in 1992 in Amsterdam, but now we've expanded to be a completely global company. We have more than 250 consultants operating on just about every continent around the world. Our core business practices include sourcing, architecture, governance, lean IT, service management, and DevOps, of course. We're very proud to say that for the last 3 years running, we've been selected as the top global advisor on sourcing and governance by the IAOP in the areas of client satisfaction, delivery of excellence, and innovative programs. Very proud of that. And last off, we consider ourselves and we like to push ourselves forward in the areas of ITSM, lean IT, and DevOps. Now I'd like to introduce our presenter today, Joel Pomalis. Joel is a senior consultant with us here at Quint, but been in the ITIL field for a very long time and is very knowledgeable about DevOps as well. We're very happy to have him with us today and sharing his knowledge. Joel, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Alex. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all. So I wanted to set the stage here to what we are going to be talking about here during the next 25 minutes. I wanted to set the stage in regards to both of the frameworks that we're going to be speaking about, both DevOps and ITIL. Even though some attendees may have an idea of what both are, this may be a good refresher and will set the stage. So DevOps is the practice of operations and development engineering, participating together in the entire service lifecycle, from design through development and production support. It has been defined as a culture movement or practice that emphasizes communication and collaboration between developers and other IT support pros to establish a culture where build, test, and release of software can happen frequently, rapidly, and reliably. ITIL is a service management framework, best practice, that focuses on aligning IT services with the needs of the business. It describes processes, procedures, tasks, and checklists that can be used by any organization to establish integration with the business strategy, deliver value, and implement improvements. So as you know, ITIL is a framework that's been here for maybe more than 10 years, actually, and it provides best practice to IT service management. So why does it get a bad reputation? Why does ITIL get a bad reputation? Well, there's a generalized perception that ITIL is a lot of work. And in fact, if you take it as dogma, it is. And when I say dogma, I say literally. There have been many organizations out there that have done too much work on documenting processes and procedures, which is not bad, but they have done so in isolation, I want to say, probably in a little vacuum without regards to anything else, especially when they have focused on doing just incident, problem, change, and configuration management and ignored everything else. ITIL offers many other pieces of guidance that are really not used. Stuff in service design, especially in service design. In my experience, I found many organizations just don't focus enough on those aspects. We will talk about this a little bit later. A couple of vendors share the blame too. Many of them, as you know, have tried to put ITIL into a box, and you can probably Google this term, and you'll get a whole lot of hits about quote-unquote ITIL in a box. And ITIL cannot expect it to work out of the box this way. It wasn't designed, wasn't intended to be that way. Many organizations also do not know or do not go out to gather, document, and understand the requirements needed to have a solid ITSM program in place. It's because it's just not documented processes and tools. It is also adjustments in culture and behavior to continuous improvement, understanding what waste is and how to get it out of a process or an activity, and the identification of what voice of the customer and the value stream relative to what the lifecycle supports. All of this is well and good. Let's also look at DevOps, because there are things in DevOps also that may present a risk if taken literally and not done right and correct. There are risks about doing DevOps. First one is not recognizing what is valuable. For example, in the Phoenix project, which I'm want to guess that many of you may have read, and if you haven't read, it's a great read about DevOps. They spend some time trying to identify the four ways of work: business, IT, changes, and unplanned work. Many organizations are just stuck doing the last three: changes, unplanned work, and IT, as opposed to focusing on delivering business value. There's also the cultural aspect of DevOps, and this is very important. The dev in DevOps, as in developers and development, has a slight applications and coding bent. While this is true that the hardware side is also now easy to deploy and develop as infrastructure as code, many companies, for some reason, can make the change to a condensed way or an integrated way of working. They just focus on getting software out the door without anything else. And that's not, in my opinion, that's not the entire purpose of DevOps. Having poor end-to-end vision of services is not good for DevOps. Because if you do not know the upstream and downstream impacts of what you're putting into production, you're just deploying software faster just for the sake of speed. And what could happen also is that operations ends up having no visibility in what the software that's being pushed is. The cloud is not a cure to all. That's my personal opinion as a professional. You cannot just solve anything or everything by putting stuff into the cloud and forgetting about it. Who's actually in your organization, who's actually making sure that all risk is considered and understood by both the business and IT as it relates to DevOps? If you're not doing this before going faster as a DevOps organization, you're introducing a whole lot of risk into the organization. And also having good measurements and having good improvement data for you to come back, examine what you have done, and keep moving forward. Some organizations, again, don't do this. They just keep pushing it, and when they say we're going to do DevOps, they just keep pushing software and code, and probably sometimes don't measure at all, or just measure relative to software only. So it has to be an end-to-end thing. So what can ITIL and DevOps do together? They need each other. They actually do need each other, and they complement themselves. And bringing DevOps into an ITIL ITSM world will benefit it, as ITIL will benefit DevOps. ITIL provides a structured way of thinking about services and service design. It provides alignment of the business and IT. It provides a business relationship model that you can use to go out into the business and talk about their needs and requirements. And it can provide better reliability and quality of services. On the other hand, our friends in DevOps space provide collaborative working, which is a great way for you to structure an organization and deploy services, continuous and fast deployment rates, faster feature delivery, focusing on important work, and environment stability. So these two guys need each other, and bringing DevOps into ITIL and into ITSM is better than not having it at all. So what about waste? Again, ITIL, when taken literally, generates a whole lot of waste and hardship. If you have seen, like I have in my basement, I have a big ITIL poster with all the databases and all the documents that the ITIL framework says that you should have. If you have ever seen one of those or you have Googled it, really consider the fact that if you were to build all of those little databases and create all of those documents and try to manage all of that, you will be just doing ITIL. You will just be managing that framework as opposed to delivering value to the customer. And that's something that you shouldn't be really doing, because you'll be wasting your time. This contributes to the fact that what I sometimes call people getting ITIL fatigue. When you go into an organization as a consultant or as a customer or as a contributor and you start talking about ITIL, people roll their eyes and they go, oh, here we go again. We've tried this before. It didn't work. I don't want to do ITIL. I'm tired of ITIL. Don't talk to me about ITIL. ITIL becomes a four-letter word. So especially when people focus too much on the operational piece, incident, problem, change, and not a whole lot on the things that can prevent many of the issues that go into operations, like having a good design, a service design package, for example, or having good transition procedures. So DevOps wants faster delivery, but it is waste and not ITIL that can slow DevOps down. Again, if you think about the things that ITIL says, and if you take them literally and you want to then introduce DevOps into your organization, you're not going to get far. There's going to be elements in the I don't want to call it natural waste of ITIL, but there's going to be elements in ITIL that will block DevOps if you don't get them out of the way, or if you don't rationalize it in such a way that makes sense for your organization to either do it or not do it. You can do DevOps without having a thorough or understanding of all the processes in the value stream and the execution of them. And I'm talking about having an understanding as to how a service is delivered from design all the way to operations as a single piece of flow, and what each process in that value stream contributes to that piece of flow when it goes from point A in design to point B in operations. If you don't have a visibility and a thorough understanding of how that works, you can't really, in my opinion, you can't really do good DevOps, because you're going to be operating blindly. Okay, you cannot see it. So, and this is not going to be effective. You're just going to be pushing code without value, or just and affecting operations downstream. And most of this waste in ITIL translates into ITSM tools, especially, again, when taken literally and when put into the tool directly. If it makes no sense, why do you put it there? And I've seen many implementations of ITSM tools where, for example, and this is a practical example, the incident management prioritization matrix, impact and urgency, is exactly literally the same matrix as is in the ITIL service operations book. It's exactly the same. Why do you do that? It's not reflective of your organization or your culture. Or you leave, or what also happens is that you leave stuff in the tool by default, as the vendor sells it and installs it to you, and your service and your process documentation says something else. So why do you do that to yourself? It's not very good. So you need to rationalize and go over some of these things. What you may be missing from ITIL is, again, robust service scoping. ITIL provides a way to scope services in the right way, to look at the strategy and as to how will you go out to your market and approach your customers and deliver the activities that you said to your customer you were going to deliver. Having a good rigor of service design, it's important. Again, and when I say rigor, I mean sweating the design of a service. Conducting all the activities, availability, capacity, service continuity, service level management in such a way that there's integration and you deliver a cohesive service design package to transition and operations. Many companies out there don't do this correctly or don't do this at all. And this is, to me, one of the most important pieces if you want to do DevOps the right way. I say, for example, that it is actually in service design that you create the value that service operations will deliver. You can do many things in service design to prevent stuff from happening in operations. You can have an outlook on strategy, which ITIL provides. It will also give you guidance as to what to consider when doing a good transition from dev to ops. This includes checklists, knowledge, procedures, resource requests. Service transition can give you all of this in a very cohesive fashion. Dev shouldn't transition anything that ops cannot handle. And I will also say that if you are not bringing your operations people up into the development piece, embedding them and making them an integrated team into the transition activities, you should, because the operations teams and the operations resources will give you information and guidance and specifics that the developers may have missed. Stop doing fire and forget. Stop to gather data and figure out how to use that to be better next time. If you're not doing any improvement initiatives like doing plan, do, check, act, and 7 steps improvements, you're leaving money on the table. And ITIL gives you a little bit of, gives you a whole lot of this actually in CSI. You have that perspective on improvement, on being better every time, and how to integrate all of those improvements back into the life cycle. So how can ITIL help DevOps? The big point that I want to say here, I don't want to probably not read the entire list, but a big point that I want to hear is to say that these does not have to be rigorous or bureaucratic processes, nor that you have to stop whatever you're doing to do all of these things. Normally, you will assess where you are. You will start with doing a CSI assessment, you know, where you want to go and what you're missing, and start working on some of this iteratively. That may mean making multiple attempts to define a service design package, for example, or to fine-tune all transition plans to incorporate feedback from implementation or operations activities. The key point here is to drive many companies to focus on the away from the old style of incident, problem, change, and configuration release, but to do also higher, quote-unquote, lifecycle phases activities in strategy and design. And I chose this clay part very consciously. Yes, good design is a tough job, but it is well worth it. And any DevOps initiative will stand on flaky ground if the strategy is not sound and the design is not good. Recognizing that they can get it, recognizing that you cannot get it right the first time, use CSI, continual service improvements, to iteratively get to a good point. So how can DevOps help ITIL? Well, if you, again, going back to the Phoenix project and the recently released DevOps handbook book, they talk about the 3 ways of DevOps, which is the first way emphasizing on the performance of the entire system as opposed to the performance of a specific side of work or department. This can be as large of a division or as small as an individual contributor. The second way is about creating the right to left feedback loops, meaning bringing information and resources up into the development area and using that information to do process improvement initiatives to shorten and amplify those activities going forward. So all the necessary corrections can be continually made, and you're not just doing big improvement activities, but small iterative improvements over time. The third way is about creating a culture that fosters 2 things: continual experimentation, which requires taking risks and learning from success and failure, and of course having a blameless culture, a culture of not blaming people, and a culture of solving problems, and understanding that repetition and practice is the prerequisite to mastery. So there are 4 main areas within DevOps that work within IT. So in the extend development to IT operations area, we create or extend the continuous integration and release processes from development into IT operations, integrating QA and information security into the work stream and ensuring production readiness of the code and environment. On the create IT operations feedback and to development, we ensure that the information from IT operations is radiated to development and the rest of the organization. In the embed development into IT operations area, we facilitate creating tribal knowledge within IT operations and share accountability for uptime and availability within the department. And in the embed IT operations into development, it's reciprocal to the previous area number 3, and the goal is to create a service design and delivery equivalent of designing for manufacturing. So this is all well and good. And I want to introduce also the concept of Lean IT, because Lean IT can help in many ways as well. Lean IT, if you're not familiar with it, Lean IT is the extension of Lean manufacturing and Lean services principles to development and management of IT products and services. Its central concern, applied within the context of IT, is the elimination of waste, where waste is work that adds no value to your product or services. So the application of lean IT principles can take your current ITIL practices further to small improvements that will support DevOps principles. And I've coined the term within my company, some of my colleagues, that lean IT makes ITIL sexy. It does. If you start thinking about some of the things that it provides to the improvement of processes and services. Lean IT works in 5 dimensions: performance, process, organization, behavior, and attitude. We bring into the table through Lean IT, and something that DevOps consumes as well, the voice of the customer, value stream. We also introduce improvement activities like Kaizen events, which is very important. Approach to solving problems and the basis of continual improvement initiative, continual incremental improvement, something that DevOps also preaches or provides. And we also do the identification of waste, overburdening, for example, the overprocessing, overburdening waiting time, inventory in motion, overproduction, overprocessing, and that sort of things. So it brings into the table a couple of tools that you can use to take a good hard look at your processes and your ITIL practices in your company, and start thinking about improving those before you start attempting to do DevOps the proper way, the right way. So where do you start? Well, I always like to say that you start with what you have. You don't have to redo anything. You don't have to stop what you're doing and put it on the trash and start over. No, you start with what you have. Look at the tools, process documents that you have right now, and start understanding what they are, where they are, who owns them, and have some situational awareness around those things. Knowing the average number of incidents of service desk scandals is a great number, but ask yourself the question, so what? And keep asking that question until you can tie that metric specifically to a key business outcome, not an IT outcome, a key business outcome. If you can get to one, that metric is probably a vanity metric for IT, and it's probably wasting someone's time just gathering all the data to provide that number. So ask yourself that hard question, so what? Is this valuable to the business? Does the business care? If I in IT care because I can tie it straight to a business goal, that's great. If I can't, maybe you should you should consider not doing that anymore. Go out and interview your customers, your business customers, the people that actually consume your services, and understand what they do from a business perspective, their goals, and figure out how can IT help enable them. If you don't have a portfolio, no problem. Many companies don't, and I understand that's kind of a hard thing to do. But talk to your customers and start drawing one, even on a 1-sheet piece of paper. If you do have a service portfolio, check it. Make sure that it is aligned with reality. Scope is very important, and services with a broad scope are a little bit hard to maintain, and if it's too narrow, it might not provide enough value. So make sure that whatever service you deliver to your customer is within a good and well-defined scope. You should really have a service design package. This is something that many companies out there don't have, but this is something that I would recommend people and companies to actually have. It doesn't have to be a drawn-out document, 100 pages, 200 pages. It can be something as simple as 5 pages, maybe 10. It can be done in 10 pages. But as having a service design package gives you structure, rigor, and acceptance criteria for the requirements that you set out for the service around the 4 Ps, people, products, partners, and processes. If you don't have one and people don't understand them, you cannot really expect people to deliver services to spec, let alone do DevOps activities transitioning code really fast. You can't expect to do DevOps by doing quote-unquote fire and forget from devs to ops. That means, in devs, I code my application, I chuck it off the proverbial wall between dev and ops, and it's ops problem now. No, you have to you need to position ops for success, and that means having a solid transition strategy, and that also means making all functions active within the participants and contributors through the entire lifecycle. That means bringing people, operations people, into your DevOps meetings, into your development meetings. That means training them and helping them understand what is the code being deployed, what are the technologies being used. So they will know, and they will be your best friend. Doing textbook ITIL, then by textbook meaning literal ITIL, can generate a whole lot of waste. Identify waste where it lies in the value stream and plan on eliminating it. Be very aggressive, and this includes tools. If you look at something in a tool or in a document and it doesn't make sense, and or no one reads it, or no one uses a field, for example, I've seen this also. No one uses a field. No one reads a process document. No one reads a page in a process document, or no one reads something in a tool. Consider looking at ways for you to reducing or eliminating that element from the value stream. I'm not saying that you will put all the processes on the wastebasket. No, just make sure that there's stuff in there that adds value. If it doesn't add value, consider getting rid of it. Do what I call small improvements. Eat the elephant in small bites. Do evolutionary changes, not revolutionary changes. And encourage a culture of improvement and not blame. Blaming really gets you nowhere. Instill a sense of ownership and pride by making people address issues head-on without blame. We all make mistakes, and it behooves us as a team to learn and be better each day. A blame culture only produces hostility and aversion to doing what needs to be done. And that's my last slide.
Thank you so much for presenting today, Joel. We did have a couple questions during the presentation. I'd like to remind everybody that this is an open forum, so you can continue to ask questions right now, and if someone else's question inspires something out of you, feel free to fire away. So we'll go ahead and jump into the first one right here. We're pretty diligent with documenting our processes, but it's not always very successful. How can we expect people to follow DevOps if they're not able to follow a incident or change management process?
That's a good question. And one of the problems that I've seen in many companies is that they over document the processes so much, and they use it as a weapon to a degree. And that's not the way you want people to follow a process. Not use it as a weapon or as a threat. If you don't follow a process, I will get you fired. In some cases, if it's life threatening, of course, it makes sense. But in many cases, it does not. So having that, again, going back to the whole waste discussion, having that critical look at a process document and getting rid of the things that don't make any sense, it will help for people to adopt the process. The other thing that will also help in the adoption of processes is automating whenever it makes sense. So if you have, for example, incident management process, and you're able to automate a form in one of the leading tools to be, to make it so instead of it takes 15 steps to enter incident tickets, and now through automation I make it 3 steps. Hey, great. So having that insight and that visibility into eliminating and streaming work through waste elimination and better ways of work and continuous improvement, that will make people adopt processes better every time.
Okay. And the next question we have here is, in your opinion, does Agile precede DevOps?
Not really. I think that Agile and DevOps complement each other. Again, there's two very similar disciplines. With Agile, with the user stories and Scrum and all that. I think that, and they're just like ITIL, they're complementary. You have to pick and choose from whatever works best to your organization or your team. One thing does not necessarily replace another. You're just going to throw ITIL away and start doing DevOps, or throw DevOps away and try to do Agile. Use what's best. Use what works on your company, for your organization, for your services, and your circumstances at the time.
Okay. The next one in here, Joel, is can you elaborate on why you say ITIL generates a lot of waste?
Yes, that's one of my favorite topics. Again, if ITIL, taken literally, and if you have ever read the books, it's 5 very big books. I think it's like, I want to say they average about maybe 250 pages each, give or take. If you go through the books literally and implement everything, every little database, document, process, checklist that is there, you're just going to do what the book says as opposed to using the knowledge in the ITIL framework as best practice, which I also say that is documented common sense to deliver value. It generates a lot of waste I've seen this in some companies. They just literally they go to the book, they read the entire chapter, say on incident management, and they transcribe it to another Word document, which again it's a type of waste, and then it's literally the same thing that's in the book, not adapted to their circumstances, not adapted to their services. It's literally there, and then whatever's in that document that they created does not translate into the tools. So you're generating some sort of waste by not being efficient in doing what you need to do. So having a critical eye towards using what's best and adapting and adopting what the ITIL framework says is critical. Again, it's taking it literally. It's not that it's wasteful by itself. There's plenty of good knowledge in ITIL, but you don't want to take it so literally that it's exactly what is in the books.
Great answer. Here's the next one, Joel, and this is, I often find that people don't spend enough time to truly determine the purpose of their organization, which he thinks is a key first step. What are your thoughts on this?
And I agree. I agree completely. Some organizations, especially on IT organizations, don't really understand what the customer out there is doing. What is it actually that we do? Some organizations are good at this. It really depends. What I've seen, it runs the gamut. But having that visibility, going really out there and talking to your customers is vital, and seeing how they work and how they deliver value to the customers outside. Think about a bank or, for example, I had the privilege to work for the U.S. military at some point in time as a contractor, and we supported the warfighter, and it was really upfront. Meaning we support the guys out there in the front fighting for us, in the battlefield. So it made it very clear, and it instills it instills a sense of pride, but also instills a sense of urgency and knowing what needed to be done. So, but one of the things we did, we went out, talked to our customers, and understood what they were doing as it relates to supporting the warfighter. But that's one of the things that Lean IT brings into the table, is having the foresight and the knowledge as to how to approach the customer, get their voice, and type that voice, what I want to achieve, to critical to quality attributes and metrics that tie all the way up and down the value stream. And having that visibility will help you understand and interpret what needs to be done better.
Gotcha. And just in the interest of time, we're going to make this the final question. Joel, how can you make the change management process more agile without losing control? Do you reduce approvals, decrease lead times? What do you think are best practices?
I think that, of course, I want to say it's a tricky question, but in my mind, one of the things I like to do is look at for example, standard changes. One of the things that many organizations out there do or don't do is look at having more standard changes into production and into production environments. And DevOps strives like in this sort of environments. They want to go faster, so you want to make it easier for them to just push changes out. So having a good critical look at standard changes that don't break production is important. Lead times, it really depends on the type of change. I want to say normal changes, classified normal changes. So in some organizations, it takes what it takes. But if you start enabling, shortening those feedback loops, making the teams more integrated, and that you give them the environment, the automation, you can make the change management process better by just shortening those approval steps. I think that many of the problems out there in terms of change management is having all these gates for approval. You just want to make sure that the gates are open, and if something does break, that you learn and maybe you apply the brakes a little bit, but then you keep those gates open and keep them pushing out changes into the environment. And the other thing also is learning. You want to enable a culture of learning because if and when that first change breaks, you want the people the second time to learn from their mistakes and not do it again and move on. And have that open culture of not blaming people. It happened, we learned, we all learned, and we move on, but you will still have that gate open to keep pushing changes into production.
Alrighty then. Thank you, Joel, for answering, and thanks to the audience. There was a lot of great questions today. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. The last thing I want to leave everybody with are some of the methods that we have out there to contact us. There they are right there, and we're active on just about every single social media network, aside from maybe Pinterest or something like that. But you can go ahead and follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and from there you can see if we have any upcoming webinars, white paper releases, blog posts, other thought-provoking material on DevOps, ITSM, Lean IT, and more. And also feel free to reach out to Joel directly and ask for Joel directly if you'd like to. That's his info right there at the bottom. If you'd like to discuss maybe some of these ITSM DevOps topics, I know he personally likes to geek out on some of this stuff. So if you'd like to pick his mind on that, I know he'd be happy to do so. It's going to leave everybody wherever you are around the world. I hope the rest of the day is great. Thanks again for joining us.